Hey guys, I just wanted to let you know that for Black Friday and all this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then going into Monday, you can get 15% off your purchase of merchandise at Teespring. Link is in the description down below. Again, if you're wanting to buy any kind of merch, now is the time. 15% off using the code FITCITY19 as you see on the screen. Link is in the description. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is yours truly, Fitz City. How you guys doing? Hope you're having a fantastic day, and also happy Thanksgiving to those that celebrate it. It is tomorrow, so if you're watching this on Thanksgiving or just after the fact, I wish you, Fitz City, from me, a happy Thanksgiving. Make sure you stuff your face. Now, the Timeless Cup. It is coming very soon. Actually, it starts what? Let's see. Today's Wednesday. 28th is Thursday. 29th. It's like this weekend, right? Okay, so it's coming. What are the best Pokemon? Well, there's been a lot of guides out already, but I'm going to kind of go over some Pokemon that I think are really good, and ones that could be sleeper picks as well. I know a lot of people aren't talking about that just yet. So without further ado, let's go over the Timeless Cup as is. And the main thing is the rules. You get 6 Pokemon, has to be in the Great League. Now, here's one thing that's interesting. The Timeless Cup requires you to pick a single elemental starter from the first 4 generations, and then you must pick the rest of your 5. Now, any Pokemon with Fighting, Normal, Fairy, Flying, Steel, or Psychic typings cannot be used. This includes the dual typing. Now, starters are exempt from this. It actually mentions this below, so you don't have to worry about that. Legendary and mythical Pokemon cannot be used. Umbreon and Sableye may not be used, and this only goes from Gen 1 to Gen 4. So, here are the list of Pokemon that are actually available for you to use in the cup, and there are some good ones. I'll probably go over the sleeper picks right here. Sleeper pick number 1, Arcanine. Arcanine, if you have Flamethrower as a legacy move, I know a lot of people don't, but that's why this is a sleeper. If you have Arcanine with Snarl as a quick move, Wild Charge, or Crunch, and Flamethrower, you're looking pretty good. Or, if you don't have Flamethrower, if you go with Snarl with Wild Charge and Crunch, that's pretty good looking too. So, Arcanine could definitely be a sleeper, and it has very good moves for PvP. We know how well Raichu does, but Raichu, in this kind of meta, doesn't look like it's going to do very well, considering the fact that Electric is an okay type of move to have. But this cup is very Dragon meta, and it's just Raichu's too squishy, honestly, when it comes down to it. Kingler, too squishy. Haunter, too squishy. Electrode, again, the electric type. Dugong could actually do really well because it has access to ice type moves, which is then your counter towards dragons, because you are going to encounter one of the dragons in these in the Pokemon I'm going to go over. You will encounter one. I'm not going to go over any of the starters just yet. These are just sleeper picks. We all know how good Quagsire is with Mud Shot, and then have Acid Spray, Stone Edge, or even Sludge Bomb. Quagsire is definitely a good Pokemon. I would test this first. It could actually end up being a sleeper compared to what the meta is. Let's see. Nothing really out of Gen 2. Of course, we're going to talk about that later. Manectric, not so much. Whiscash is really good. We all know how good Whiscash is. Give it Mud Shot with Mud Bomb. Pretty good. I think another good sleeper is Crawdaunt. Crawdaunt has access to Snarl, a fantastic move since it got buffed just recently. And it also has access to Crabhammer and then Night Slash. I think Crawdaunt could actually be a very good viable choice in this meta, or in all Great League meta for that matter, but specifically in the Timeless Cup, I think this would be a good sleeper choice, to be honest. The fact that Snarl builds up Night Slash really quickly, and then you could one-hit KO with Crabhammer because it is a very good move. It makes it pretty deadly, to be honest. It keeps your opponent guessing. Crawdaunt, look into it, give it a try. You'll see what I mean. Celia, of course, we'll talk about that. Nothing really else here. Shelgon, we're going to talk about that. Relicanth, I mean, Relicanth is really good, actually, in PvP, but a lot of people don't have access to this Pokemon, so it makes it kind of not very useful to talk about, but it actually is really good for the Great League. But in this case, I don't think so much. It would have to be tested, but again, like I said, not very much have access to it anyway. Then Gen 4, not really much pops out at me. I've heard PokeAK himself has said Drapion has actually been a really good sleeper pick for this cup and has been doing really well, so we actually might go over Drapion. Skuntank, we know how good Skuntank is. A maxed out Pachirisu is actually not bad with Swift and is it Wild Charge or Discharge? I don't know, it's actually not a bad Great League Pokemon, but as you can see here, there's not really much use overall. Spiritomb is actually really good, and I think that might be a good sleeper for just doing overall stab damage, doing an extra, 20% damage based off your typing moves. It could come into play and be a really good Pokemon to use. And I think also Frostlass, with it being an Ice type and countering those Dragon types, it actually might be a good Pokemon to use as well. Whether you should lead with this one or not remains to be seen, because Frostlass is a little squishy, unfortunately, but has access to amazing moves like Powder Snow as a quick move, Avalanche, and that dreaded Shadow Ball that almost one-hit KOs anything. So without further ado, let's go into my 6 Pokemon that I think are quite interesting, and then we will go from there. So the first one is Parasect. Well, that's interesting, right? Well, the thing is you're not going to come into really any type of flying moves other than maybe an Air Slash. But Parasect is a very interesting Pokemon, and it could actually do fairly well in this meta, and here is why. It has access to Fury Cutter. We know Fury Cutter is absolutely ridiculous as a quick move, but it also has access to X-Scissor and Cross Poison. And the interesting thing about these two moves is they charge up so incredibly fast, you don't know which one as an opponent is coming. One does more damage than the other, X-Scissor, but Cross Poison would be good shield baiter, or it might even do super effective damage depending on your situation. So I think Parasect, specifically as a lead, if it's not in a bad situation, like if you throw it out and it's going up against a Charizard, you're SOL, right? But if you come into a neutral matchup or even a favorable matchup, Parasect could actually be very good for shield busting or wiping out your first opponent because of those quickly charged moves. So Parasect, although it's a part of my list, I also think this is a good sleeper that I failed to mention as well. Next up is Buck. Buck, need I say more, it's only weak to ground and psychic. Look at these resistances: Bug, Fairy, Fighting, Grass, and Poison. So this is ideally good against a Pokemon of grass typing, but its moves are fantastic. Poison Jab is a very good move, but Infestation actually has a higher energy per turn. You could go that route, that is entirely up to you, but personally I'd go with a little bit more damage and still have a good EPT with Poison Jab. Now, the interesting thing, if you have Lick, go with Lick. Lick's pretty good too. But these are legacy, so we will not talk about them. The interesting thing about Muck is its charge moves. Acid Spray for that 20% nerf in your opponent's defense? Man, I don't know. Should you go that route? You could. Thunder Punch is a must. Thunder Punch is a must. That gives Muck outstanding type coverage, especially with the water Pokemon that are available and are good in this cup. Thunder Punch is a must. And then, honestly, depending on how you want to run Muck, you could run Acid Spray or Dark Pulse. Acid Spray would be a setup Pokemon. You would bring Muck out first. You would hurt your opponent with Acid Spray the first move, get 20% nerfed, and then come in with a Thunder Punch, or just simply Shield Bust. Because you're doing Poison Jab, chances are you are going to be doing neutral damage or super effective damage. But chances are you're going to be doing neutral damage to your opponent, so it's going to hurt already. On top of the 20% nerf, it's going to hurt even more. And then you got a Thunder Punch or another Acid Spray, which could Shield Bust because they might not know it's another Acid Spray. They might think it's Thunder Punch. You can see where I'm going with this. Muck could be very good at setting up other Pokemon, or it could be really good at dealing out damage. It's entirely up to you how you want to run Muck. My guess would be probably a good setup Pokemon, but test it both ways. I think you're going to really like Muck. Next up is Golduck. I haven't personally seen anyone talk about this Pokemon, and I think a lot of people forgot that it has a wide variety of moves now. It's absolutely insane, and it's weak to Electric and Grass, two typings that are familiar in this cup, but here's the kicker. So, not only does it have access to Water Gun, not only does it have access to Confusion, it has access to Cross Chop, Synchronoise, Psychic. I think Synchronoise is better than Psychic in PvP terms. Bubble Beam, which does a 10% nerf and attack. Ice Beam. So here's the deal with Golduck and what makes it so incredibly viable in this cup. Confusion hits like a truck. It is a very, very, very heavily damaged move. Water Gun has really good EPT, energy gain, and it does stab, which means it's going to do more damage than normal. Cross Chop will do super effective to Dark, Ice, Normal, Rock, and Steel. Okay, but that's also a quick charging move. Synchronoise, Fighting and Poison, maybe not so much. This would be good against a Muck matchup, but maybe not so much. Ice Beam, coverage for your Dragon and Grass types. That might be a very good viable option. And then Bubble Beam, it does get stab. It is good for buff or nerfing your opponent's attack stat by 10%. It might be useful to use, considering out of all these moves, you will get Bubble Beam first. So how I would run Golduck is Bubble Beam, and depending on how you're trying to cover it, do you want to cover the Dragon types? Ice Beam. Do you want to cover anything else and do decent damage? Cross Chop. You could even throw Synchronoise in here, but I think Bubble Beam might be a smart choice. Just for shield busting, because you don't know what your shield situation is going to be. A 10% nerf and attack never hurt either. Especially if it's like a Charizard. If you get in that kind of matchup with this, that's fantastic. And you're going to lose that fight, but you nerfed its attack. This Pokemon is so viable, and there's so many situations I could do really well in with this cup. I highly recommend that you try out Golduck and play with some of these moves. It's fantastic. Next up's Dragonair. This dragon, if you're going to put a dragon on your team, I think this is the go-to dragon. It's weak to other dragons, Fairy and Ice, and it resists pretty much everything else that's literally in this cup. And the interesting thing with this Pokemon is you're going to want Return. You're going to want to run Dragon Breath with Aqua Tail and Return. So make sure you go out and you find a, Shadow Dratini, purify it, make sure it has decent IVs for PvP's sake. Low attack, high defense, high HP, and run Aqua Tail with Return. That's what I would personally do. Wrap, you could, but this Pokemon is to deal damage with Dragon Breath. This is what you want to use it for. Deal massive damage with Dragon Breath. And they're going to come to a point where they're either going to have no shields already, or they're going to have shields, and you're just going to bombard it with Return or Aqua Tail and play that mind game. It's going to be insane. So, honestly, this Pokemon is fantastic. It's going to have good attack advantage. It's going to have good shield advantage, shield busting capabilities. It's a fantastic Pokemon, and it's only a Dragon type. So, that's also fantastic as well. Next up is Shogun, and you could honestly state a case for the same exact thing as I just said for Dragonair. Is its moves and what it's capable of. Dragon Breath, same instance with Dragonair. Twister, a pretty quick charging move, and then Flamethrower for more coverage. Grass, Bug, like my Parasect, you would absolutely destroy it because it's 4 times weak to fire. Ice and Steel, so this actually would be a decent cover for against the Celio, but Celio, chances are, would probably end up still whooping your butt. But nonetheless, Dragon Breath, Flamethrower, Twister, where could you go wrong? Those are fantastic movesets for PvP. Last but not least, Celio. Of course, Celio is weak to Electric, Fighting Grass, and Rock. It resists Ice and Water. But we know how good Celio is because it has access to Powder Snow. It is such a quick EPT move, getting Body Slam almost within a blink of an eye. And the thing is with Body Slam is you're not going to run up against any opponents that are really going to have this typing at all. I don't think you can run up against any of them at all. Okay, there are some rock types that you could run across. Okay, so I'm wrong. But are they really PvP viable? Like Golem, really? Why would you want a Golem? It's weak to water and grass, which you're going to run in at least one of those two. Yeah. So that's not going to be a problem. So, Body Slam without a doubt. And if you're going to run a second move, this is where things get interesting. Your Powder Stone is covering your dragons, right? But it's not really doing that much damage. Even though it's doing stab and super effective damage, it just doesn't seem like it does that much damage. Because, well, it really doesn't. It's a very low PvP move. Quick move. You could run Aurora Beam for more, coverage. or you can run Water Pulse and have more fire coverage. Like, let's say you come into a Charizard situation, Blast Burn is really going to hurt Celio. I've run into it. I'm sure many of you run into it as well. Blast Burn freaking hurts. But if you can get a Water Pulse off, no shields, one hit KO. So think about that. And last but not least, let's go over, like I said, in the communities tab of YouTube on the channel, the Pokemon that PvP Poke says. Now, of course, make sure you guys check out this website. It's right here at the top, pvpoke.com. Training battles, really good sims. Always test these out, though. But I'm going to go over why some of these Pokemon be better than others, even depending on the results. So Meganium, if you see here, is actually the best. And I could kind of see why. It's the tankiest out of all of these. Vine-Whip Frenzy Plant has Earthquake. Very interesting Pokemon, but you do want to be careful with the Dragon types. This is where the Dragon types are just going to absolutely wallop Meganium. So it's kind of interesting. I would say out of all the starters, I'd have to say it's between Charizard and Blastoise for the best starters. So play with these two. I could definitely see Blastoise doing really well against the Dragon types because Ice Beam. Hydro Can's a very good neutral damage move. Charizard and Blastoise, I do believe, might be better than Meganium. Of course, I don't know. As always, you should test these, but that's just my personal opinion. Venusaur does look pretty good down here too. Do not use Blaziken. Just don't use it. You're not going to find a good use. Reason why, you're going to come across a dragon. I'm telling you. Look at Kingdra. Kingdra's even in here. I didn't mention it, but it's in here. And it's a very good Pokemon that has a high attack stat. You're going to run into a dragon, and that is literally going to stonewall Blaziken. There are too many Pokemon in this cup that stonewalls Blaziken. That's why I say don't use it. Now, if you use it and have success, don't listen to me, okay? I'm not saying you should use it, but I'm just saying with the meta, there's too many stonewalls, and you want to avoid that situation as much as possible. So Celio, obviously a champ. Lapras is really good too. I forgot it has access to Skull Bash, but Surf and Ice Beam with Ice Shard. If you have a Lapras that has Ice Shard, absolutely. Lapras is a good Pokemon. I didn't mention it, but it's absolutely a good viable Pokemon. Dragonair, we know. Kingdra is a beast, but is it the best dragon? I'm not so sure. Castform, the ice one. Powder Snow, Weather Ball is an extremely fast gaining move, especially with Powder Snow coupled together. And it's a good damage move too, so Castform is really good. Of course, there's Shelgon and Muck, we talked about those. So what about the top team combinations? These are interesting as well. This team looks pretty dope, not gonna lie. It's got the water coverage, it's got dragon coverage, and it's got normal damage coverage, and also shield busting capabilities. So this is why this team is fantastic. Same thing, dragon coverage, big damage and shield busting, setup. Acid spray, if you set it up, this is why it's in the, the third best? Yeah, Mux is the setup. Again, dragon coverage and shield blessing capabilities with body slam. Dragon coverage, shield busting capabilities, and heavy damage. So you can kind of see what each of these Pokemon are actually used for. It's very interesting. It's very eye-opening too. What specific uses and roles that these Pokemon play and why they're so good and why they're ranked so high. So you can kind of go over these Pokemon and figure out what you want each one of them to do, what their purpose is. And of course, your game plan could fail miserably because we all know that dreaded first Pokemon throwout. If the matchup isn't there, it's almost game over. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below about the Timeless Cup. Are there some other Pokemon you think will perform really well? Let me know in the comment section down below. Smash that like button, subscribe if you have done so already. Be a part of the Fit City fam. That's it, the boy Fit City. I'm signing off. See you guys in the next Pokemon Go video.